My brother has become just a nameless, faceless commodity in the interest of record companies profiting from his blood.
It was the case that they gave me. I'm innocent.
The jury in above entitled action find the defendant, McKinley Lee, not guilty of the crime of murder in the first degree in violation of Penal Code Section 187, a felony, is charged in count 1 of the information.
Made millions since the killing. MTV will cover his trial live and could make millions more. All of which makes the Woldermarians, who immigrated from Ethiopia, wonder if the death of a son and brother was just a marketing opportunity.
It's almost been 30 years since Snoop Dogg's arrest and murder charges, and I don't think many people realize just how huge of a deal it was back then.
Next thing I know, here these detectives coming out looking for Snoop.
We've got Sheriff's Department and LAPD and everybody outside.
Just think about it. After dropping his legendary album Doggy Style, Snoop was at the peak of his career, easily the biggest name in the rap game. His arrest and the murder case that followed almost overshadowed his rise to fame. Even though What's My Name was the first single off the album and it was a hit, Murder was the case that really put things on another level. The song and the accompanying DVD release blew up, making more than $40 million in sales and propelling Snoop to superstar status. In a twisted way, it's like the murder case helped cement his legend.
Made millions since the killing. MTV will cover his trial live and could make millions more.
But while Snoop and Death Row Records were out there celebrating their massive success, there was a family mourning the tragic loss of their son.
My brother has become just a nameless, faceless commodity in the interest of record companies profiting from his blood.
Philip Woldermarian was his name, and he was only 20 years old when he died in that incident with Snoop and his bodyguard. And for him, murder was really the case.
It happened in this Los Angeles park. Snoop's bodyguard shot and killed 24-year-old Philip Woldermarian.
Just try to put yourself in Philip's family's shoes for a second. Seeing the people they believed were responsible for their son's death getting richer and more famous off of it must have been beyond devastating. It's a tough pill to swallow, especially when you're grieving. I mean, even Snoop's former bodyguard that was at the center of it all confirmed how devastating it must have been for the family when he saw them in court.
And you had to see this family. You know, did you and the mother or the father ever like lock eyes?
Yes, one time. One time.
And how was that?
I felt the pain.
Snoop and his bodyguard Lee were eventually acquitted of the murder charges. Lee claimed self-defense, while Snoop faced charges for manslaughter and accessory to murder, which ultimately ended in a mistrial and went no further.
We, the jury in above entitled action, find the defendant, McKinley Lee, not guilty of the crime of murder in the first degree in violation of Penal Code Section 187, a felony, is charged in count 1 of the information.
But for the Woldermarian family, the story didn't end there. They saw the trial paint their son as a gang member, a stalker, and the guy with a gun. But Philip's sister had a very different story to tell. She's been quoted saying lies, nothing but lies. And she remembers her brother as a young man battling diabetes, not the troublemaker the defense portrayed him as.
All of which makes the Woldermarians, who immigrated from Ethiopia, wonder if the death of a son and brother was just a marketing opportunity.
We are completely surprised about the justice system in this country, really.
So who was Philip Woldermarian really? Was he the quiet, kind-hearted guy his family described, or was he caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, becoming an unfortunate part of Snoop Dogg's rise to the top? Let's dive in deeper. So back in 1994, the Woldermarian family reminisced about happier times when they thought of their son. They remember when he was just a skinny 5-year-old boy and he and his sister Sophia would sneak into a resort swimming pool and race each other. Philip, who had a real streak of spirited independence, always managed to beat her. Philip's passion for basketball was something his family cherished. Even though he faced huge challenges, including violent headaches and seizures that sometimes knocked him out for days at a time, he still loved to challenge much bigger players on the court. Nothing could keep him away from the game he loved, not even his illness. Sophia kept her brother's memory alive for their parents by reminding them of the sweet little things he used to do. He was the son who never left home without hugging and kissing his mom. He loved to craft wooden jewelry boxes and draw beautiful calligraphy cards for their mother, a small, quiet woman who now had to rely on sedatives just to cope with her overwhelming grief. The Woldermarian family's journey to the United States began back in '79 when they fled from Eritrea, which was then a region of Ethiopia on the Red Sea. They were escaping a brutal 30-year civil war and hoping to find better opportunities.
And the family, you know, when you look back on it, the family were immigrants from Eritrea, which is
Ethiopia.
right next to Ethiopia.
Mm-hmm.
They came over here, I believe, in 1979 to try to give a better life for their family.
After spending a year in Idaho, they moved to the Palms neighborhood, where they lived for almost 9 years before finally settling in Long Beach. Woldermarian, Philip's father, worked as a building contractor in Long Beach and soon started his own business, Asmara Construction. The company was named after his hometown's capital, where he had a similar business back in Eritrea. Reflecting on their past, Woldermarian talked about how they were middle-class Eritreans who enjoyed a good life back home. He admitted that when they came to America, they lost the life they once knew. However, he had no regrets about the move. Coming to America meant that his son, who was diagnosed with diabetes at age 5, could access the best medical treatment. Woldermarian recalled how insulin was becoming scarce in Ethiopia and how the healthcare system was deteriorating, making their move even more critical. He also had big dreams for his children and wanted them to get the best education possible. The family motto was, "If you don't have an education, you have nothing." Woldermarian attended Palms Elementary and Palms Junior High, where he first developed his interest in basketball. According to his sister Zeman, her brother loved the game so much that he even gave up soccer to focus on basketball. Sophia remembers how proud their parents were when Philip brought home trophies in the 6th and 7th grades for playing basketball. He might have been small and skinny, but he played with so much heart and passion. After junior high, Philip Woldermarian moved on to Hamilton High School. David Ueshima, the head basketball coach at Hamilton, still remembered Philip as an average kid you don't have a problem with. He wasn't flashy or a troublemaker, just a good, normal kid. Philip was at every practice unless he was sick, Coach Ueshima recalled, and whenever he was sick, he'd always call to let us know. That's not something a gang member would do. Gang kids usually don't go out for athletics, they tend to avoid that kind of commitment. Philip's family says he had to drop out of high school because of health issues, but he wasn't one to sit around doing nothing. He jumped in to help his dad with the family business, getting his hands dirty at various construction sites around Long Beach and LA. Philip took on different roles like delivering building materials, supervising job sites, and driving his dad's truck. It was clear that he was a hard worker determined to make the most of his situation. According to Woldermarian, Philip's health had really improved over the past year after his doctors changed his medication. The headaches and the fainting spells seemed to be a thing of the past. He was gaining weight, reaching 115 pounds, which was a big deal for someone who had struggled with his health for so long. It was like a weight had been lifted off the family's shoulders, and they were all so relieved to see him doing better. Philip had big plans for his future, and his family was excited about his enthusiasm to return to school. He had it all figured out. He was going to move in with his older brother Daniel, who was 25 in New Mexico. Once there, he'd enroll in a technical and vocational school where he planned to earn his General Equivalency Diploma, GED. After that, his dream was to go to college and eventually become a doctor, something he'd often talked about with his mom. Just 2 weeks before his death, Philip visited Daniel to start preparing for the big move. While he was there, he celebrated his 20th birthday with his brothers, who surprised him with a white 1978 Buick Regal. It was a birthday he'd never forget, and the brothers drove the car back to Long Beach just days before Philip was shot. Now that car sits parked in the driveway, a haunting reminder of what could have been. Philip's family were heartbroken and angry. Quote, "I want the murderers to get what they deserve. The maximum punishment," Woldermarian said. They murdered a young man whose life was just starting. A precious and innocent human being. No amount of threats or intimidation was going to stop them from fighting for Philip. They wanted to make sure that the people responsible for this senseless act got the punishment they deserve.
Did you and the mother or the father ever lock eyes?
Yes, one time.
And how was that?
I felt the pain.
Philip Woldermarian was shot and killed on August 25, 1993 at Woodbine Park in the Palms neighborhood.
It happened in this Los Angeles park. Snoop's bodyguard shot and killed 24-year-old Philip Woldermarian.
Snoop Dogg and 2 of his associates were facing murder charges with the trial scheduled to begin that fall. Philip's family firmly believed that he was an innocent victim caught in a tragic situation, and they filed a $25 million wrongful death lawsuit against Snoop Dogg and Time Warner, which released his album Doggy Style in November of '93. The album had already made over $40 million, and the family accused Snoop Dogg of using the case to gain publicity and make money.
My brother has become just a nameless, faceless commodity in the interest of record companies profiting from his blood.
On the other hand, Snoop Dogg's lawyers claimed that Philip was a gang member who had threatened their client and his friends. They argued that the shooting was in self-defense. According to records, Philip dropped out of high school, spent some time in foster care, and had been involved in 2 incidents where guns were found. His family, however, insisted that these records didn't tell the whole story. This case had all the elements of a sensational murder trial: a famous rap star, a grieving family, and a courtroom full of high-profile lawyers. But amidst all of this, it was easy to forget about the victim, Philip Woldermarian, and the person he truly was.
All of which makes the Woldermarians, who immigrated from Ethiopia, wonder if the death of a son and brother was just a marketing opportunity.
We are completely surprised about the justice system in this country, really.
The family firmly believed that the accusations against Philip were completely off the mark. Philip was not the villain here, Sophia insisted. He was the victim. As her family struggled to piece their lives back together, Sophia expressed their frustration. They were deeply upset that Snoop Doggy Dogg is out there making millions from his gangsta music, profiting off the notoriety of this crime.
Made millions since the killing. MTV will cover his trial live and could make millions more.
Sophia emphasized that his brother was far from being a dangerous criminal. In reality, she said he was a gentle soul who was brutally shot in the back. To keep his memory alive, Sophia would often look at photos of Philip. There was the family portrait of him as a little boy wearing his jockey hat with a proud smile. Another photo showed him as a young kid proudly sporting cowboy boots. In yet another, he was happily tumbling in a pile of leaves he just raked at a stable where he worked to get a chance to ride, groom, and feed the horses. Sophia fondly recalled calling him Knucklehead, pointing to the last photograph she took of him, which was just a month before his tragic death. In that photo, he was lying there chatting with her. She had asked him to look up for the picture, and now holding the photo close, tears streamed down her face. Quote, "I had always hoped for my brother to have everything he ever wanted," she said, her voice trembling. "Now one day I'll have to tell my children about their uncle through pictures. That's what it means to lose Philip. I lost my history." But what really happened that day? Let's dive in. On October 24th, 1993, Snoop was involved in an altercation outside his apartment. Allegedly, Snoop had a run-in with Philip Woldermarian, another Crip from a different set. Woldermarian was upset about Snoop moving in on his turf. This guy was already known to Snoop, having threatened and insulted him before, and had just gotten out of jail for firing a gun in a schoolyard. The altercation supposedly started when someone in Snoop's crew flashed a gang sign at Woldermarian while driving by. Feeling disrespected, Woldermarian shouted back, "F y'all," asserting his claim over the territory. Things escalated quickly from there. Several people jumped into Snoop's Jeep, and according to the prosecution, they followed Woldermarian and his crew for a few blocks before losing them. However, Snoop's version of events was different, claiming they were just heading to the studio and not following Woldermarian. Not long after, they spotted Woldermarian and his friends at a nearby park having a picnic. They pulled up, and Woldermarian let them know they were on his turf. At this point, Snoop's bodyguard McKinley Lee stood up out of the top of the convertible Jeep.
Snoop had gotten into an altercation verbally with this kid, Philip Woldermarian, and so they had been arguing a few different times, and I think it was a little gang taunting going back and forth.
A heated exchange followed. Someone in Snoop's car reportedly shouted, "You ain't letting us know nothing, punk," to which Woldermarian responded, "Oh, I'm a punk," and slowly reached for his waistband, presumably for his .380. Snoop's bodyguard Lee saw the move and quickly fired off 5 shots, dropping Woldermarian. Snoop hit the gas and sped off, leaving Woldermarian dead at the scene.
He had a gun and, he was going for it. And my bodyguard reacted, like he was supposed to do.
Snoop's bodyguard shot and Philip Woldermarian.
The buy-yourself hustler crew, trying to cover for their friend, took the gun from Woldermarian's body and hid it. Investigators eventually found the weapon a few months later. If that wasn't wild enough, Snoop Dogg decided to go on the run, evading the cops for an entire week. Allegedly, when the incident went down, Snoop told his management everything. But instead of turning him in, they kept it quiet.
I did receive the phone call about what happened. We didn't turn Snoop in right then and there. Snoop was in hiding for a little bit.
Apparently, Snoop wanted to surrender, but Suge Knight, the head honcho at Death Row Records, had other ideas. Suge saw the murder charge and Snoop being on the run as prime publicity for Snoop's upcoming album, Doggy Style.
So I took him because I knew one thing. For me to make this dude the most hottest artist in the world, people gotta see him. At the same time, it's his job to be an artist and promote this stuff. And then when they come to arrest him, It's my job to get him out of there.
Suge came up with a plan to ensure Snoop could still make an appearance at the '93 VMAs before turning himself in. So Snoop showed up at the VMAs cool as ever, doing chilled-out interviews with Dr. Dre and even presenting the award for Best R&B. All this while knowing he had a murder charge hanging over his head and that he'd be arrested right after the event.
Dr. Dre and Snoop Doggy Dogg. Thanks for being here, guys.
What's happening?
Let him go on, and that then he would quietly go out and turn himself. He knew his freedom might be at stake.
And the winner is... and vote.
Suge discreetly arranged for Snoop to be taken in by the LAPD once his appearances were done. Now, when we say discreet, considering it's the LAPD, it probably involved a few broken ribs and some crack found on him. But miraculously, Snoop was bailed out for a whopping $1 million bond put up by none other than Suge Knight. But it took about 2 years for the case to actually go to trial. Meanwhile, with a murder rap over his head, Snoop dropped Doggy Style in November of '93, just 3 months after the incident. And man, did it blow up. The album sold 800,000 copies in its first week and over 4 million copies by the end of the next year. A big part of the hype was thanks to the track Murder Was the Case, which fans absolutely lost their minds over. In 1994, Snoop took things to another level by releasing a short film to accompany the song, also titled Murder Was the Case. This semi-autobiographical flick, directed by Dr. Dre and Fab 5 Freddy, showed Snoop getting into a gang altercation and having a shootout. In the film, he gets killed but makes a deal with the devil to come back to life and do it all over again. Some people saw this as a smart move to sway public opinion and influence the jury, painting Snoop as a victim acting in self-defense. That same year, Snoop closed out with an epic performance at the VMAs, rolling out on stage in a wheelchair, probably a nod to his role in the film and ending his performance by proclaiming his innocence.
I'm innocent.
Despite the theatrics, the legal system wasn't about to let him off the hook just yet, and he still had to face the trial. The media was all over the place with this case. The Daily Star even ran a front-page story calling Snoop an evil bastard, while others showed their support. With the evidence compiled and Snoop riding high on the success of Doggy Style and his short film, it was finally time for him to face the music in '95. Snoop assembled his dream legal team, bringing in the legendary Johnny Cochran fresh off the O.J. Simpson case. Suge and Snoop allegedly shelled out $500,000 for Cochran's itchy trigger finger package, guaranteeing one get-out-of-free card. The defense argued that the LAPD had been sloppy in their investigation. They lost the shell casings from the weapon and the victim's bloody clothes, suggesting that the police had been destroying evidence. But the LAPD fired back, saying, "No, we weren't destroying evidence, we were just hiding it." The prosecutors pushed for a murder charge, claiming Snoop had directed his bodyguard McKinley Lee to shoot the victim in a drive-by while Snoop was driving the Jeep he owned. The prosecution brought in 24 witnesses to back up their case, but this backfired spectacularly. The sheer number of witnesses led to conflicting accounts and confusion for the jury. The defense kept it simple, calling just one witness and putting pressure on the prosecution, who essentially had to admit that their side had destroyed evidence. The entire prosecution ended up being held in contempt of court. Snoop recalled his lawyers delivering an emotional set of closing remarks that moved him and members of the jury to tears.
When he did his closing argument, you know what I'm saying? Because it brought him to tears, it brought me to tears, and a couple of jurors to tears. Because he was actually telling them, I'm not representing Snoop Doggy Dogg for Snoop Doggy Dogg.
By February '96, the not guilty verdict came in. Snoop and his bodyguard Lee were completely acquitted of murder. Lee got off on a self-defense basis, while Snoop faced manslaughter and accessory to murder charges that eventually ended in a mistrial and didn't go any further. Following the verdict, Snoop gave an emotional interview with MTV where he clarified some of the facts of the case and took the opportunity to throw some shade at the prosecution.
He knew we was not guilty. He knew that. He knew McKinley Lee acted in self-defense. McKinley Lee has never, ever, ever, ever been involved with gangs. So what's the whole case about? Oh, it's about Snoop Dogg being gang affiliated, but Snoop Dogg didn't pull the trigger. He drove the car away from his bodyguard acting in self-defense. But if you look at them, they don't care about that.
After Snoop Dogg got acquitted, he had a serious wake-up call. He publicly denounced the gangster lifestyle, saying he realized if he kept trying to live that way, he'd end up dead or locked up. With this new outlook, he decided to make some big changes in his life. First up, he moved his family into a sprawling 5,000 square foot mansion on the outskirts of LA, leaving the old life behind. His next album, The Dogfather, dropped after Tupac's tragic death and had a noticeably different vibe. It was way more G-funk and way less gangster rap. This shift in style was a clear sign Snoop was evolving as an artist and as a person. However, things weren't all smooth sailing. Snoop was reportedly at odds with Death Row Records and Suge Knight over royalty payments. The tension kept building until he finally managed to break free from Death Death Row in '98. Snoop then signed with Master P's No Limit Records, and that move turned out to be a game changer. Snoop continued to evolve his career. In 2002, he released the album Paid the Cost to Be the Boss on Priority Capital EMI, which sold over 1.3 million copies. The album featured hit singles like From the Church to the Palace and Beautiful, with guest vocals by Pharrell. That same year, Snoop appeared in the remix of Welcome to Atlanta by Jermaine Dupri. By this point, Snoop had left behind his gangster image and adopted a new persona embracing a pimp image. Over the years, Snoop has sold over 23 million albums in the United States and 35 million albums worldwide. His accolades include an American Music Award, a Primetime Emmy Award, and 17 Grammy Award nominations. Overall, Snoop Dogg went on to have an incredible career, dropping hit after hit and cementing himself as one of the most culturally significant icons not just in hip-hop, but in pop culture as a whole. But for the Woldermarians, their pain is still raw. They'll probably never fully recover from losing their son.